Good morning. Today is December 10th, 2020. I hope everybody will have a good day. I want to talk this morning about my mother. Here is a picture of my parents. This was made uh, in the late 70s. My father passed away in 1978. Uh, and my mother passed away on December 10th, 1995, exactly 25 years ago. My mother's name was Clyde. She was born Clyde Francis Bean. Clyde is normally a man's name, but for some reason my mother was named Clyde. And nieces and nephews referred to my parents as Uncle Red and Aunt Clyde. She was a native of Waco, and she married my father, J.D. Uzzle, on May the 11th, 1929, when she was 16. And her she was born on August the 8th, 1912, so she was a few months shy of her 17th birthday when she and my dad married. Shelley went to the first few grades of school, and uh, in interesting story that, well, at the time of the Great Depression, there was an oil boom occurred in Tyler, Texas, East Texas, and there was more jobs in Tyler at the time than there were in Waco. So my parents moved to Tyler, and they were associated with my late Uncle Frank Uzzle and his family. I don't have any memories of that because that was before my time. All my siblings were born in Tyler. Betty was born there in 1932, Miriam in 1935, and Jim in 1938. Miriam recalls in 1945, people were dancing in the streets of Tyler to celebrate the end of World War II. And it was on May 11th, 1945, which was my parents' 16th wedding anniversary, that the family moved back to Waco. And Betty was in junior high, and she thought it was the awfulest thing in the world that she was going to have to move away and leave all her friends. Miriam and Jim being younger, it didn't affect them that much. But she thought she had completed her family. And then when they moved to Waco, my mother worked for a while at the soda fountain at Pipkin's drugstore. And Betty got married, and her first child, Angie, was born uh, on September 17th of 1950. So my mother was a grandmother. But in the meantime, she experienced an unexpected pregnancy at the age of 38. And on May 22nd, 1951, I was born. I am Angie's uncle, but she's like 8 months older than me. And during my lifetime, I don't recall my mother ever working outside the home. My dad was a tire retreader. He worked very hard all his life, got his hands dirty. He knew the tire business quite well. Didn't make a whole lot of money, and nevertheless, we always had plenty to eat, and I don't remember us ever having to do without. And so, my background is, I don't consider it middle class, I consider it working class. That's where I came from. And I still identify with the working class to this very day. Well, they live the rest of their lives in Waco. I grew up there, graduated from Waco High in 1969, from McLennan Community College in 1971, received my bachelor's degree from Baylor University in 1973 and my master's in 1976. I entered the ministry of the AME Church and held a number of social service positions with the state of Texas. On February 19, 1977, I married Deborah Bass of Fairfield, and um, it was on March 28, 1978, that my father passed away. Interestingly enough, it was on the 8th anniversary of the death of my maternal grandmother, uh, Curry McPherson. She lived with us for many years, and in fact, I don't ever remember her not living with us. And she uh, died in a nursing home in Waco. But it was exactly 8 years later, her son in law, my father, passed away. About a year after my father's death, my mother remarried a man named Buddy Adams, who was from Temple, a veteran, um, basically a good man. He had 6 children and was a widower, and they were together for 11 years. My mother played in a kitchen collector combo. They were involved in, well, she and my dad attended a lot of senior citizens events. And but after she married Buddy, she pretty much got away from that. Buddy died on July 1st, 1990. And I remember Mother tried to get involved in her former activities again, but by then she was 11 years older and just couldn't keep up the schedule she had previously. We lived, my wife Deborah and I lived in Dallas for 3 years. We lived in Kaufman for 8 years. I was pastoring churches in both communities. And then we moved back to Waco in 1988. I was teaching at Paul Quinn College, then located in Waco, and I was also working on my PhD at Baylor University. Paul Quinn moved to Dallas in 1990, but there was absolutely no way I could move to Dallas because I was right in the middle of a doctoral program, and I would have had to driven back to Waco 3 days a week for class had I done that. And so I ended up having to commute. And on May 13th, 1995, I received my PhD from Baylor. My daughter Erica received her BA in the same ceremony, which was really exciting for our family. I had called myself putting the pastoral ministry on hold in order to focus on my graduate studies and teaching. Then after I got my doctorate, I went to my bishop and told him I was ready to go back to work, and I was really let down when he told me he didn't have anything open. November 18th of 95, I drove to Greenville, Texas for the state planning meeting and was devastated when I didn't get a church. As it turned out, I would not be able to re-enter the pastoral ministry for another year. But I eventually did and have remained in it ever since. So on Sunday, December 10th, 1995, I was not pastoring a church at the time, nor was I scheduled to preach anywhere. During the 9 years I was out of the pastoral ministry, I did a lot of preaching at a lot of different churches and a lot of different places, but December 10th was not one of those Sundays I had anything scheduled, and it was best I didn't. My mother had lived alone following Buddy's death. Then she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she could not keep up that big house anymore. And so the house was sold and she was moved into an apartment. That occurred in June 1991. Then on Election Day 1992, the day that Bill Clinton defeated George Bush, I met my brother Jim and my sister Betty at Hillcrest Hospital, where mother was a patient. The decision was made to put her in a nursing home. And this place, I believe, is called Cedar Crest Nursing Home on Lakeshore Drive, not far from the campus of McLennan Community College. And I went to see her on numerous occasions during that time. And I had been praying that God would allow my mother to live to see me receive my PhD. Because of her advanced state of Alzheimer's and memory problems, etc., and general disturbance, to get her on pass to go to her graduation would have been unthinkable. There was no way that could be done. But on Sunday, May the 14th, 1995, I went to the nursing home. This was the day after graduation. I took my diploma. I showed it to her and tried my best to explain to her what it meant. I've been told that Alzheimer's patients have lucid moments. I sincerely hope that was one of her lucid moments. Betty and Jim told me that mother was never very good about expressing her feelings, but she was proud of me, and that makes me feel good, of course. Well, the following December 10th, that Sunday morning, Deborah and I received a call from the nursing home summoning us to come there immediately, which we did. Mother had expired by the time we got there. Betty was already there and told me that she was able to talk with mother before she died and tell her that she loved her. Shortly afterward, Betty's second oldest son, Mark Rawls, my nephew, arrived, and we all shared our sorrows together. And her funeral was held at Connolly Compton Funeral Home on Wednesday, December 13th. Reverend E.J. Culp, former pastor of Gateway Baptist Church, where we had attended for many years, who had done the eulogy for my dad and also for Buddy, co-officiated along with Reverend Earl Lanting, pastor of First Baptist Church of China Spring, where My sister Betty had been a member for a long time, along with some of her family. And I remember driving to the funeral home, and after the funeral service, Deborah could tell that I was not in any condition to drive to the cemetery, so she suggested that Erica drive, which she did. That was fine. And of course, that day of December 10th, we spent much of the day with family. Uh, Jim came over to Betty's apartment, and we sat in the family sat together and talked, and a lot of time we were family through much of that week. On that Sunday, Reverend Daniel Emanuel, the pastor of Edwards Chapel AME Church, where we were members, came by and brought a love offering and brought a message saying, "I know what it's like to lose a mother," which I appreciated very much. We received an outpouring of sympathy from some from the AME Church, from Paul Quinn College, and from the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas. At the time, Robert Connor was the Grand Master, and he was recovering from surgery and was unable to attend, but he called me to give me his heartfelt sympathy, and I appreciated that. And Brother Wilbert Curtis, at the time Grand Senior Warden, now Grand Master, lived in Waco and did attend the funeral. On the front row was sitting Reverend Daniel Emanuel, pastor of Edwards Chapel AME Church, and presiding elder uh, Elsie McCloney, and who of the Waco Temple District. I appreciate the presence of members of our denomination. To be honest, um, I was greatly disappointed that no one from the AME Church attended my father's funeral in 1978. Interesting how history repeats itself. When my father died, one of those in attendance was Dr. James Leo Garrett, who directed my master's thesis at Baylor. When my mother died, one of those in attendance at the funeral was Dr. John Johnson, who directed my doctoral dissertation at Baylor. Two great men and mentors. Dr. Johnson passed away in 2011. Dr. Garrett passed away this last February, and I had the honor of serving as a pallbearer at his funeral. Uh, I believe in giving honor to whom honor is due. So, losing a loved one, especially a parent, can be very difficult. But through this loss and so many others, God has been with us. So, on the 25th anniversary of her death, I give honor and tribute to Clyde Frances Uzzell Adams, my mother. Have a good day.